work. And, I'm not talking about, having foosball tables and massages, although that's cool. But there are things that we can do that actually make a bigger impact and will get employees where they actually love their job and they will stick with you for years. And it's how we do that. It's about culture. And, when I say culture, a lot of you are probably going, oh, geez, just like I did when I first thought about it and had for many years. But a few years ago, I really discovered the importance of this and how critical it is and how much difference it can make in our business. So even if you're, a little bit scared of the topic and it sounds real boring, stick with me for a minute. I promise this will be worth it. And while you're at it, if you like this video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel. We have all kinds of great stuff on there, and do all that. Really appreciate that. And throw your comments in there. I always try to answer them personally if possible. So today, again, talking about culture. Culture is not really a fluff statement, although I would have told you that for many years. And, thank you to big corporations and big bureaucracies that use the word culture, and they throw in things like, mission statements and, our values, and, and they use all these big words, corporate Chinese, as I call it, things that, nobody even knows what they mean. And the problem with that is that most people, if you ask them if they work for a company that has those things, they wouldn't be able to tell you, one, what is the mission statement, or what are the values, or they might get one of them right or something. But, and the question is, do they think about them on a daily basis, or do they actually believe them? Or is it just something that the CEO and some other consultants wrote, in some big flowery language to impress, investors to get, more people to buy into the company or whatever. And it doesn't really do anything for the employees. Nobody's showing up for work because of that. And that's kind of given a bad name to culture. And so I wanted to talk to you about, the importance of it. As small business owners, it is so critical, and we use it in our daily lives and we don't even realize it. But so again, stick with me for a minute. So let's first get sort of my definition of a culture. There's, if you go to the dictionary, there's a formal one, but basically it's of any group of people, it's sort of the rules that we follow. Most of the time it's unwritten rules, by my house, living in Arizona, it's, sunny and good weather most of the year. And so a lot of people are outdoors doing cycling and everything. And so, by my house, there's a street where, cyclists every weekend, there's, droves and droves of people riding their bicycles, in packs of people. And guess what? They all look the same. They all dress the same. They've got the tight shorts and the tight outfits and, sponsored or whatever, same helmets, similar bikes, and they're all generally, outdoorsy people who like fitness, who likes, doing that sort of thing. And they kind of have their group thing, and if you show up to that group, in the morning, they all meet at the park or whatever. You show up with your mountain bike versus a cycling long distance type of thing. And, you wear a pair of jeans, suddenly they're going to look at you and go, you're not really part of our gig here. You're not one of us. And that's what culture is about, is people want to identify and say, oh, this person is like me and therefore I like them and I have that bond with them. So that's kind of what culture is. And, I know, I made this mistake for many years as a small business owner that, I thought, well, we don't have things like culture don't matter in a small business. I mean, what employees care about is showing up and their paycheck is good and, they can have opportunities for advancement or whatever, And it wasn't until a few years ago where I had some experience when I realized the critical part of culture. And it's a little bit like scripts. If you've seen any of my videos, I talk about sales scripts and, the fact that whether you think you use a sales script or not, you do. Whether, people say, oh, geez, I don't like to use sales scripts or in a cold call or whatever, because every conversation is different. Well, the truth is you do use a script, just like we all use scripts in daily lives. And the truth is that all of our companies have a culture to them. The question is, have we thought about it? Have our employees thought about it? Is it intentional? And so, if we know we have a culture, it'd be much better to plan it out, so to speak, to know what it is and make sure it's the kind of culture we want in our company and how it's going to move us forward, make us more money, which is what we're all here for. So I put together some of my notes, and one of the things that I wanted to share with you is an experience I had a couple years ago, like I said, really changed us. we had, typically with any new employee, you bring them in, you go over their job skill set, how well they're going to perform at the skills that they need for the job, all that kind of stuff. And so we brought in somebody who was very skilled at what they were doing, seemed like an affable personality and really nice. I liked him as a person, all the typical stuff you would expect, as when you're hiring. And for a while it sounded like, hey, this person's doing well. They're performing really well at their job. They're clearly competent. Kind of like, ooh, good job. We brought somebody in that is going to be a real plus for the company. But the problem was that we didn't totally understand this person and their value system. And over time, they had a different way of dealing with clients, for instance. They had a different way of dealing with others, their co-workers. They had different beliefs in, what they thought the purpose of the company was, what their role in the company was. And this, again, is not skill set. This is their belief system. And all of a sudden, it started to, and I found this out later how bad it was, but we started to see that other employees started to really get to the morale. These people started to have difficulty with this person. And it really became, really bad in some instances. But, people started, showing up late and leaving early, so to speak, just going through the motions. Productivity just plummeted. And, because the morale was so bad, because this one person, and again, it wasn't that they're a bad person or that their skill set wasn't there. It's just they weren't fitting in with the culture of the group. And I didn't put my finger on that. I didn't realize that. And, I tried to, play peacemaker and, smooth things out, with different systems and everything, and try to get people to get along, so to speak, all those types of things. And none of that seemed to work. And it wasn't until I realized that the problem is that this person came into our group and there were certain rules that we all lived by. We all had certain beliefs about, interaction with each other, interaction with our clients, what the company was doing, why we were all there, our responsibilities, all those things. And we didn't really tell that new person what those were. And in retrospect, we kind of expected them to figure it out, just by osmosis. And that's how most groups works in reality. You kind of come into a group and you figure it out after a while, what's acceptable, what's not, and that sort of thing. I mean, that's how we learn as kids, And so, but the bottom line is, after a while, this person, it was clear it was just tearing us apart. And so we had to part ways with that person. And again, not because they were a bad person or even that they were not doing a great job of what they were doing. It was just they just didn't fit in with the group. And the amount of productivity and the amount of money it cost the company, and of course, as an owner, personally cost me, because of that is amazing. And looking back over 25 years in business, I can see certainly certain instances, employees who sort of clicked, if you will, who were like, oh, these are great hires or whatever. And it wasn't always because of the great skill set. Looking back, it was because they fit into the group, they fit into the culture of the group. And so what we need to do is figure out a way to intentionally build that culture and then let new people know about it. One of the things that larger corporations and even smaller businesses to an extent sometimes will do things like they're trying to create relationships amongst the team, the employees, and so they'll do a weekend team building, a 3-day event in the woods or whatever, and of course it's there to build bonds with people and in a non-work environment, and that's great, all that. I've never been a big fan of that because although it may be fun, it might create some personal relationships that maybe didn't exist before. It's not really getting to the root, because the root of what we're trying to get at and why people enjoy coming to work is about trust. And if you think about your life, the people that you trust most in your life usually have some beliefs in common with you. Because if they are completely different than you, completely different views of life, belief systems and all that, you might get along with them, but you're never going to have that intimate, close relationship with them that you might with somebody who's, gets you, so to speak, and gets the same beliefs. And so if we can figure out a way to get employees to trust each other, to trust management, to trust their coworkers and all that, that goes way beyond any kind of benefit of higher pay or foosball tables or anything like that. Because let's face it, if you trust people like family, well, maybe not some family, but you know what I mean. If you trust them like that, then it's like coming to work with, you've got your friends there, so to speak. Even if you're not, drinking buddies after work or whatever, it's still, I mean, who doesn't want to come to work with people that you trust and like? And that makes your job a lot easier. And you feel like people have got your back, you've got their back, and all that creates that bond, So it really is a huge thing. And it can, I think personally, that if you have the right culture versus the wrong culture, it can actually make you a ton of money. I mean, much better than hiring 5 new salespeople, because that will come and go. But culture will keep your company alive. And the wrong culture will absolutely sink your company. And you won't even realize it's happened until it's too late. So, I thought about it, and question, what did we do in our case? When I kind of came along and figured that out, that that we had a problem, and that it was with our culture. I went through a process, and I'll share this with you. First thing we did was, as the owner and the leader of the company, I sat down and said, you know what, I need to come up with, I'm going to start with a list of, things that I believe are kind of basics, culture, things that we should all agree on as people in business working with each other, things like as basic as, we don't tolerate any kind of sexual harassment or, anything that'll make somebody feel uncomfortable, something like that, which, should be universal, but, hey, unfortunately, in a lot of companies, that isn't, the truth. It may be written down somewhere in a mission statement or values or something, but nobody even knows it's there. So I started brainstorming. I came up with, I don't know, maybe it was 10 or 15 things or something. I don't remember the exact number, but the point is, I got it started. And then what I did was I went to, our team, and again, we have a fairly small company, so if you have 1,000 employees, a little bit more difficult to do. But the point is, I didn't meet with just management. We met with everyone and said, hey, let's do what I did. Let's add to the list that I came up with. Let's go over those things. Let's decide things like in our company. One of the things I came up with was we don't get easily offended. We enjoy good humor and everything, as long as it doesn't cross a line. We're not horribly politically correct internally. That's just the way that the personalities roll in our company. So we started adding things, and then we went back and looked at the wording together as a group, and everybody had their say. Everyone from the lowest paid employee to myself, all the way up the chain. And because everybody needs to buy into this. And that's the single most important thing when you're coming up with culture, is writing it down and then people buying into it. And how do you get people to buy into it? If it's their own idea. If, just like in sales, we want everybody to do things for their own reasons because they want to, not because we want them, because they're not going to do that. That's called coercion, or forcing somebody to do something. Sales is about influencing somebody to do something that they want to do. So in this case, if they come up with the culture ideas themselves, hey, they're going to be much more likely, one, they're going to be aware of them, and two, they're going to live them. And we went through these things, and these are things, again, like how it relates to, each other, how they treat, their fellow coworkers, how they treat our clients and customers, how they, deal with management, how they look at the company as a whole. What are we in business for? Why are we doing this? Because if they don't know why we're in business, again, that they lose kind of the emphasis or the motivation to figure out why they should be doing their job well. What are we trying to achieve? Excuse me. And so we got everybody's input, and then kind of ran out of room here, so I'm going to erase the bottom part. But, and then we literally posted it around the office, so that there's big lists of it at different parts of the office so people would see it. Because, again, that's one of those things you see at large companies, they'll have a mission statement buried somewhere and a list of values buried in some manual somewhere. They don't even know. They don't see it. They're lucky they've ever seen it. And they certainly don't. It's not in their consciousness. But when you put it up there, it's kind of like tacking notes on your refrigerator, or putting things on your mirror from a self-improvement standpoint. You see those all the time and it gets into you. And these are all things, again, that we've all done together. So we all bought into them. One of the things I didn't mention when we were talking about the brainstorming session with the team is we would go through and we would say, okay, let's talk about this, this, and this, is there anyone who thinks that we need to change that, or that's not necessarily true, or, not sure about that belief or whatever. In other words, we don't want to shoot somebody down and say, who doesn't buy into this? But basically that's what we were looking for without attacking somebody. So everybody that, was involved in it pretty much signed off on things. So this is just a reminder. And then, the biggest thing, and this is where it really comes into the story I was telling you about, and it comes to new hires. One of the future videos, I'm going to do some stuff about the hiring process and how you find and get great talent in your company. But the process typically, when you're hiring based upon skills, of course. And what we found is that hiring based upon culture is much more important than skill. Skills can be taught. Skills can be improved. Belief systems, that people have deep down, their identity, how they view the world, all that stuff, that's a lot harder to change. It can be done in sales, but it's very difficult to do in a culture environment that is different from the way they feel about things. So if you bring somebody in, like we did with that one employee that just didn't fit because they had different belief systems than the rest of the group, you're going to have problems, and it's going to cost you. As we know, hiring is one of the most costly things you'll ever do, because if, by the time you spend all the money trying to hire and get the right person in there, it could take months. Get them in there. It takes months to train them, go through that, their salary, their benefits, all that stuff that goes with it, not to mention all the time and everything. And then if you got to let them go because they're the wrong person, you got to start over again. So it's enormously expensive. So the fact that, if you can filter that out in the hiring process and take your successive hiring from, 60% to 80%, it's like, geez, that saves you a ton of money and makes you a ton of money. So one of the things we started doing is we literally give somebody in the process, before we get too far into it, we give them like before they come into an in-person interview or even a Zoom interview, we give them a list of our culture statements, which I think we ended up with like 10 or 12. I was going to share some of them, but I forgot my paper. But anyway, so we literally give them a copy of it and say, hey, before you come in, or before we talk further, these are the things that we believe as a group. And, it's perfectly fine if you don't believe this stuff, but these are pretty strong beliefs. And basically, you're not going to fit into the group. You're not going to be happy here at our company if you don't have the same beliefs, which is fine. Just know that, we're probably not the right company for you. And so we kind of disclose that up front, and that will discourage some people. They'll say, you know what, I like a company where they're not all, uptight about, sexual harassment or whatever, which, whatever. But, or, I'm not sure about a company that says that they don't get offended or they're not politically correct. People who are more conservative and they're like, okay, hey, we need to be with the times or whatever, which is fine again. But if it doesn't fit the culture of the company, they're going to have problems. So we nip it in the bud, and the employee, if they agree to all that stuff, they go, yeah, this is totally me. Of course, they're going to want to get into that company. They're going to be excited. They're going to be happy to be part of it. And guess what? When they actually get there, they're going to be happy and part of the group, and the group's going to like them because they're paying attention to the same rules that everybody else is, so to speak, in the group. And they're going to fit in right away and develop that trust much quicker than if, they had to wait 6 months or a year and either crapshoot, maybe they did have those beliefs, maybe they didn't. And, once again, you're out of a new employee because they're causing problems, and eventually they have to go because they don't fit in. So again, culture sounds like it's something that, oh geez, as a business owner, it's like, I don't have time for this. I've got better things to do than focus on stuff like this. But, like I said, I personally believe this is more important than hiring more salespeople, more important than trying to get more revenue. And it doesn't take that much time, but if you do this right and you build the foundation in your company, this is going to make you a ton of money. And I guarantee it's made a huge difference in our company, and I would highly recommend it. So sit down yourself, start working on these statements. It doesn't take that long. Get with your employees, get with the team, and kind of ratify these and come up with some additional ideas if you need to. And then once you all agree with them, start implementing your hiring process. And I guarantee this will pay off in dividends. So I hope this was helpful. If this was valuable to you, please share it with friends, colleagues, and family, whoever. And hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't to the channel. We've got all kinds of good stuff on there and new videos coming out every week. So I will talk to you